We have no idea why Stonehenge was built. It's lost to time, and it will always be lost to time. And that's the great mystery of it. We don't have written records to turn to. We have to turn to the rocks themselves to understand who or why they were built.
There must have been something really special about this stone, or perhaps even the quarry that it came from.
This little rock's been on quite a journey.
Yeah, this has been on a big journey.
Stonehenge is a very complex monument that was started to be built around about 3000 BC.
Standing on Salisbury Plain in Wiltshire in the south of the UK, Stonehenge's looming trilithons and stones are an impressive feat of engineering.
And the amazing thing is that people have fashioned them almost like carpentry to fit together, and it's all graduated to take in the lie of the land. It really is quite amazing.
In 1923, Herbert Henry Thomas wrote a paper entitled The Source of the Stones of Stonehenge, where he detailed where the famous stone circle originated from. But over the last few decades, researchers have discovered that Thomas's work was less than thorough.
But when we interrogate the samples and interrogate the paper in detail, there are some serious flaws in it. We've been able to take Thomas's work, interrogate it, refine it, and get very much more precise and well-defined sources.
Now, over 100 years since Thomas's original paper, scientists have new evidence for the final piece of the puzzle. The monument can be split into two kinds of stones, the Sarsens and the bluestones.
So the Sarsen stones, those are the very big ones, 20 to 30 tons, very impressive stones. In comparison to the Stonehenge bluestones, they're relatively local. They had been thought to be from the Marlborough Downs, that's just a bit further on, but this recent work has kind of narrowed it down to a place called Westwoods. And it seems like the majority of the Sarsens come from Westwoods. So the bluestones, they were originally called foreign stones, and those were anything that was exotic to the Wiltshire Plains, the Wiltshire region. It's the stones that were coming from 225 kilometres away to the west.
But one of these bluestones is not like the others. The altar stone. It might look unassuming, buried beneath the ground and partially covered by a collapsed sarsen. But the altar stone might have the most interesting history in the entire henge.
Now, we call it an altar stone, but we honestly don't know if it was ever upright like an altar, as we would imagine in a church or a cathedral or whatever. But what we do know is it's positioned so that it has a solar alignment. It respects the sun. So on midsummer sunrise, when the sun comes up in the northeastern horizon, it shines right in through the center of the stone part of the monument, past the heel stone, which is just behind us, and actually would have shone more or less where the altar stone is. And then if you stood there at midwinter, you could watch the sun set on the midwinter solstice dropping down to the southwest horizon. So it's very crucial to that solar alignment.
So the altar stone has been considered to be a bluestone, and in terms of the original definition of a foreign stone, to the Wiltshire landscape, then it fits that. But by classing it with the bluestones, everything has been looking towards Wales for a source. And we've progressively worked further east across the South Wales outcrop of Old Red Sandstone. And effectively, we've got to the Welsh borderlands, run out of outcrop and said, we haven't got a match. So at that point, we said, it's actually time to step back. Why is it called a bluestone? Why do we think it's from Wales? And actually, is it time to rethink completely?
And on the other side of the world at Curtin University in Australia, PhD student Anthony Clark would join the hunt.
It was actually a chance email with Professor Nick Pearce, a co-author on the paper, to work on other Welsh rocks, and he said, I have samples of the altar stone available to us. Would you like to receive them in Australia? And of course I said, yes, please send them down under as quick as you can.
This piece of rock was taken from the underside of the altar stone in 1844, and with permission we've been able to take a small piece off to make a thin section, and it's that piece that went down to Australia to be analysed and dated.
So the altar stone is a sandstone made up of minute, microscopic, compacted grains. You can imagine beach sand that has been squished together to form a rock. Each of these grains will have a unique age and chemical characteristics that we can measure using laser ablation mass spectrometry. Once we understand the age and the chemical characteristic of each grain, it builds up a fingerprint, a DNA signature for that rock, which can then be compared to potential source terrains, the crystalline bedrock of an area, and overlying sediment. We discovered that the central 6-ton stone or megalith at the heart of Stonehenge was sourced from the Orcadian Basin, nearly 700 kilometres away from the Salisbury Plain.
In terms of how the altar stone got to Stonehenge, there are two possibilities: ice transport or human transport. And really the ice transport doesn't have any evidence to support that. There are no clear ice flow patterns from that part of Scotland all the way towards Stonehenge, and there's no evidence that there was ever ice covering the Stonehenge landscape.
Even today, travelling from North East Scotland would be an arduous journey by car, so I spare a thought for Neolithic Britons on how they may have moved this rock from 700 or so kilometres away.
The scientists are presenting us with this new information that the Orcadian Basin is the likely source of the altar stone, and I'm really looking forward to when my archaeological colleagues can get hold of this and try to make some sense of it. I mean, there's already evidence for moving small stone axes, for example, and lovely polished items around, but they're portable. So this is obviously very different. I mean, it is phenomenal for us to think that they could have brought something that far, but we know other things are moving around that distance. So it's going to be a great debate.
The altar stone itself has been on a journey from the Orcadian Basin to Salisbury Plain. Then these fragments of that stone have then been shipped to the other side of the planet for me to analyse in Perth in Western Australia, and now here I am back at the scene of the crime. I visited when I was a child on the top of my dad's shoulders, peering into the stone circle, and I think that really inspired me to study rocks and study geology, and here I am some 25 years later at the centre of Stonehenge, having made this really awesome kind of discovery.